What's up, guys? It's your boy, Aaron Wedderburn, for Aaron Wedderburn Media. You know how it is. Anyways, today I'd like to talk to you guys about a new lens that I got. It's a Nikon 35 to 70 millimeter f3.5 AI. Honestly, nice budget vintage zoom. I'm gonna list out all the pros and cons of having this lens. If you wanna kind of get a good idea of what it looks like, I'm actually shooting on it right now at 35 millimeters set to, I'm pretty sure it's at f3.5 right now. Let's go over some of the pros and cons of it right now. One of the pros is that it's actually pretty sharp. Again, it's not as sharp as, say, a Sigma, even like a Tamron, but for the price, it's pretty sharp. Again, I got this lens for around $80. You can find it for around $40 to $100, depending on where you pick it up at. The AI-S is the one that you really want to get. That's the sharpest, but I got the AI because it's a bit cheaper and easier to find. The cool thing is that it's easily adaptable. Like right now, I'm shooting on the a6300 right now. Another pro of that is its constant aperture. It's f3.5. There are other lenses out there that's constant aperture of f4. It doesn't really bother me that it's only an f3.5, especially for the zoom range that it covers. It has a decent focus throw, which is pretty cool too. It's probably around 200 degrees focus, which, I mean, that's pretty cool. The build quality. One thing that I really love about vintage lenses, except for this lens right here, it's a Canon FD 28mm f2.8. Now, really good lens. I'm not quite sure why they chose a plastic build quality for it, whatever, but the Nikon 35 to 70, now that one, all metal, 100% build quality. It's built like a tank. Toss it off a bridge and bridge will survive. It's solid. Oh yeah, the cons of it. As I said, the aperture doesn't really bother me that it's only an f3.5, but that is a downside because it's not the best for low light. So if you're expecting a zoom lens for low light, I would recommend going to, again, the Sigma 1835 f1.8, and I'm pretty sure Tamron has a wide angle zoom lens that's an f2.8, which would give you around, what, an extra stop of light in comparison to 3.5. So that's pretty good. But if you don't mind the 3.5, if you're shooting predominantly in daylight or situations where you can control the lighting, then 3.5 is completely perfect. In fact, the majority of the time I'm not even shooting at the widest aperture. I always stop down my lenses no matter what. If you need to shoot at the widest, it's better suited for a situation where you are in control of the lighting or if you know it's going to be very bright. Now the focusing distance, even though there's a very long focus throw, the minimum focus distance is only at 1 meter, which is kind of annoying because when I'm doing a lot of B-roll shots or even just when you just want to get close to your subject, 1 meter is kind of irritating. Now I've done many shoots where when I switch to this lens, it kind of catches me off guard because I'm used to shooting on the 28mm Canon FD or even my Kozenon 50mm f1.8. The focusing distances like 0.3 meters or whatnot, so I could get pretty close. And then when I switched to this one, so I could get the kind of extra range of 35 to 70, I'm like, oh snap, I have to step back a bit. So that's one thing that I hate, but it's one thing that you can really just push off to the side, kind of like the 3.5 minimum aperture or maximum aperture, sorry. Now one thing that really bothers me about this lens that I can really say is something that grinds my gears, the rotating front barrel. Since I use a lot of variable MDs, slapping them on the front, it begins to act as a polarizer rather than an MD. So I would often get a lot of strange vignetting or even just adjusting from the focus distance of, say, here to the monitor when I'm pointing at a very bright subject or a metal object. You would begin to see the light shift on it, and that's honestly really annoying. So when you're using it outside, I tend to just stop down and use a very low intensity ND filter, or when I'm using my variable ND, I just don't bring it to its max strength. I usually stop it about like half and just stop down the lens. But there's little workarounds that you can do. Again, I would recommend getting a solid ND. That would work perfect for you. You won't have any issues with it. The sharpness. So it is a pretty sharp lens. Again, it's a vintage lens, so it's not going to be sharpest. So especially when it's wide open, surprisingly for an f3.5, you expect for it to be pretty sharp in comparison to an f1.8 or an f2.8. It does have some very soft edges. There's very little distortion in the frame. However, the very corners of the edges could be very soft, wide open, and there is a lot of chromatic aberration on highlights. Now that's something that you would expect from vintage lenses in general. That's just what they produce. So again, that's another thing that you want to watch out when you're getting this lens. But apart from that, it's a really good bang for your buck lens, especially if you're looking for a zoom that you can't really afford. If you're just looking for a nice studio lens or something where you are in control of the environment, this is a really great zoom lens for you. It's perfect, really. Okay, well, let me know what you thought of this video. If you liked it, if you disliked it, you know, just leave a comment, dislike, whatever. Feel free to hit me up if you ever want to talk about gear. I'm always open. My name's Aaron Wedderburn, and I'll see you next time. Peace.